A new Texas law went into effect, and y'all know I'm here for it. Texas has a new law, SB 942. A father will be responsible for paying retroactive child support starting from the date of conception. This bill seeks to ensure both parents contribute to the financial responsibility of pregnancy, including medical expenses. The topic has sparked passionate responses from both legal experts and community members. With child support in the state of Texas, it only looks at one parent's income as the one paying support.
Okay. What do y'all think about that?
This is ridiculous.
What is Texas doing?
I just want to know, are they going to be like auditing both parents to make sure that from the point of conception that they're both making financial contributions to the child? Because I don't.
For clarity, is this a mandatory thing?
I think
I didn't hear her say it. Was it a mandatory thing that they're putting on?
Coming into discussions. I think it's dumb, honestly. I'm just going to be honest. Like, how are you going to charge? Like, how are they going to prove that person's the daddy?
Exactly.
I was going to say that. I think that if they're worried about, I don't think that it should be retroactive until the date, like from the date of conception. I think that it should be from the moment that paternity is established.
Facts.
Because it just doesn't make, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I was just talking to someone about this a few days ago. In Florida, there's such thing as pregnancy Medicaid. So a lot of it, the expenses that are covered or that are incurred over the pregnancy period, everyone is eligible for pregnancy Medicaid in Florida. So I don't know what it is in Texas, but from the date of conception, it's a little extreme, even for me, like being pro-life and all that. I think it should be from the moment that paternity is established, which you can do that while the baby is still in utero or when the baby is born.
I agree with her. And in fact, I believe most guys wouldn't have an issue if only they could be a mandatory DNA testing. Because some guys, in fact, some of you are watching me, but you're raising kids that don't belong to you. Some of you are scared of doing DNA tests because you don't want to actually find out that the kids you've been paying for all these years and don't belong to you, if we're going to be honest. So I think some guys are like, hey, if you're going to require me to pay the money as soon as she finds out she's pregnant, which is really conception, how about I find out if it's actually my kid? Because most guys will pay the money. You find out it's not your baby, but she won't even be able to pay you back the money.
So, yeah.
This is why I always say marry before you carry. You marry before you carry, you don't got to really worry about this as much.
Yes, you do. The women be cheating and trifling too, and the married men, the husbands be fine. Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the women.
Fellas gonna have to pay more attention to who they laying down with at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Do you think this is gonna help men pay attention more to who they're sleeping with?
Yeah, men need to just.
I don't think it's gonna.
Because at this point, they gonna get tricked out their position for real. This is.
I did just read it though. It says that paternity would have to be established for the retroactive child support payments to start. So they're not doing this ideally to men who aren't the father. This is supposed to be paternity is established. Okay, now that we know you're the dad, from the moment that y'all got pregnant, whatever date that was, now you need to start contributing to that. But again.
Okay, then that works. If they're going to establish paternity, which I hope is through DNA, because paternity can also be established by you accepting and putting, accepting you're the dad. Once you accept you're the dad, DNA or not, you have to pay child support. Because I'm sure you guys have heard of those stories where if the guy writes his name on the birth certificate and he didn't do a DNA test and then later on does the DNA test, in some states, in some courts, you are forced to pay child support for a baby that isn't yours for 18 years just because you wrote your name on the birth certificate before doing a DNA test. So guys, watch out for that.
And there, like Jerry said, like there's programs and things, so I don't really know like what kind of is the equal on her contributing and him contributing, or is this just supposed to be a punishment because you're not married, you know, and you need to do something and be held accountable? So this is like their way of like holding them accountable because they're, you know, having to establish paternity before establishing this, you know, retroactive idea. So it just, I don't know, it sounds like they're trying to find like legal ways to punish men,
Right.
or like, you know, try to like marry them without, you know, having them be married. Like there's always still some type of, you know, permanent type of tie that seems to be put on him. But I don't know, you know, again, like what's the parameters on her having to contribute to her own child and her own, you know, pre and postnatal care.
Well, I mean, by default, the person that you sleep with is the person that you essentially marry. Like that was originally what marriage was. Marriage was because you defiled a woman or because she slept with you, then that was essentially either your wife or your concubine, which is one of the reasons why we branded women in society way back when as promiscuous or whores or whatever it is that you want to label them as. That was the reason why we branded them, is because they were like, you know, a person with no home.
That's facts. Actually, in some African cultures, if a man gets a woman pregnant, whether it was a you know, hit and run, you know, one night thing, when she gets pregnant, both families come together, they organize a wedding. That's it. Now, maybe it's starting to die down, but to this day, in some African cultures, if you get a woman pregnant, whether you liked her, whether it's the ass, whether she was ugly, and you're just trying to get one off, you're gonna marry that woman as soon as she gets pregnant. The families, her family is gonna force you to marry her, which I agree with. That way, it reduces people, you know, making babies that they're not prepared to keep.
And so one of the things is, before I deep dive into this whole child support issue, is what guys and what people don't understand and what women don't understand is that the person that you lay down with, no matter how you frame it, that's way more impactful than the person that you marry. People, we get caught up in the relationship aspect of it, but we don't really take into consideration that the person that you have a child with is going to be a person that is tied to you. Even if you decide that you don't no longer want to associate with each other, that child is a remnant and is a direct descendant of the person that you decided to have sex with.
They don't
So
care about the kids. They
so
don't
we don't
care.
take that into consideration. A lot of times we just having sex and women are opening up their legs. And let's be clear, like again, most guys are not having children outside of wedlock. There is a small minority of men that are fucking the majority of women and they're having children with them. So even if we talking about punishing guys, most of the guys that get caught up getting punished are the guys that's ultimately getting a whole lot of women pregnant. Now, the flip side of it is also tied to the my body, my choice situation, in which Texas obviously is a red state, which also voted to not abort their children. And so, as a result, a direct result of that, aside from the whole court system, is making sure that people take ownership and accountability for who it is that they had sex with, all the way up until all the way for, you know, the birth of the child, the conception of the child, all the way up into the birth, because of the prenatal care and all of this other type of stuff that's costing, and a lot of this healthcare. It also is associated with the social services, which is one of the reasons why we need to be more accountable with who it is that we lay down with.
I think most guys wouldn't have an issue paying child support, right? If only there was a way the system could force the mothers to show how they're spending the money. Because let's be honest, some mothers spend the money on their hair, buying bags, going out to brunch with their girlfriends, things like that. Right? So if there was a way, the same way the state or the system tracks how much a man should pay, there should be a way to show, okay, she spent this, she bought this, nursery or daycare, something like that. But as soon as the money goes to the woman, the dad never knows how the woman spends the money. So that's why most guys have an issue. Also, another issue most guys have is that they pay child support, but they are still also in 50-50 custody. But it's like, if we have sharing, 50-50 custody of the kids. You have kids half the time, I have the kids half the time. Why don't we split all the bills halfway? Why do I have still to pay you like as if you have 100% custody? And then some guys don't even have the chance to see their own kids, but they're still required to pay child support. So those are the things most guys struggle with.
So that's just giving y'all some extra insight into what is happening with these laws, which I don't believe that it's fully passed yet, but it is something that is working its way through the courts over in Texas.
I
Or
think
the
for me,
legislative
I think
branches.
that it's time for women to take a look in the mirror, because we constantly are having the same conversation about male accountability, which of course I'm all for men taking accountability for their children, but also there are two people having sex every single time, but we still have this repetitive thing about male accountability, and it's not coming to, there's no solution in place because we're not holding both parties accountable properly. I think that I am very frustrated at this point with even younger women, because the more I talk to women, it just gets worse and worse and worse as the generations progress. Even, of course, I'm included in that generation, and you start to talk about young marriage, or you start to talk about sticking with the person that you decide to have kids with, and it's always met with contentment. It's always met with a scoff, because it's just kind of like, why do I have to be responsible for the actions that I commit? And at this point, it's just like, we need some chastity belts or something. Women have sex too much, and nobody wants to say that, because sexual liberation is something that's supposed to be applauded. But at this point, it's sick, because you are more sexual than a person. And I don't really subscribe to like, oh, we have testosterone, so we want to have sex more. I understand there's a biological aspect there, but even if we talk about the nature of men and how they do, want to sow their waddles, whatever the case may be, you want to have sex more than a man, and you're more cutthroat with it than a man, and then you end up with the baby because you've conceived this child, but then don't want to be held responsible for the outcome. It's just,
I mean, guys. I mean, if we're gonna be honest and take accountability, guys love to get one off. Guys love to get a nut. So guys also love to have sex. So we're not gonna say women just have to love to have sex, but men love to have sex too. But like she said, which I agree, if both parties can be held accountable in the same way, that would be fair, because a man cannot just get rid of his rights as a father the same way a woman can say, I don't want to be a mom, and that's it. But the man cannot just say, I don't want to be a father. Okay, sure, you don't want to be a father, you're going to pay child support regardless, whether you want it or not. So that aspect of being fair, that's what most men are looking for.
we're in a confusing time.
I think some of these women want to move like men. They want to move like men, or make excuses why
Yeah.
can't they? And it's just, I'm surprised Texas would pass some bullshit like this. Like, can we find something else that would be more conducive? Like, how about we take away DNA must be tested prior for child support? Like,
Yeah.
making this something, this is crazy. Now imagine the women that's going to be falsifying, yeah, this is my baby daddy, and he's really not your baby daddy. Like, so what's going to happen if you find out he's not? Are they going to repay the money to the guy?
Never.
So I think I don't see this passing in Texas, but I hope not. I feel, I don't know, with today's times, you don't know what might come about just in general.
Well, from my understanding, Cameron, didn't you say that like in order to get the retroactive child support, paternity had to be established in the state of Texas?
That's what it says.
I don't know. I think, in my honest opinion, I like the idea of retroactive child support just because I think it really protects men as well. If they establish paternity and you're the dad, you got to take care of your kids. It's not the burden of the taxpayer to take care of that stuff. And then you also have in some cases where men don't sign themselves up for child support. The woman actually comes back and tries to get what they call child support arrears.
Well, Brandon, the question for me, the question that I always,
Yeah, that's the issue. Another issue most guys have when it comes to having kids and child support. So apparently, you and your baby mama could be on good terms, Let's say she has a baby, you're taking care of her or taking care of the baby. Maybe you guys are not even together, but when she's like, hey, send me money for this, the baby needs diapers, the baby needs ABCD childcare, you can send her the money, right? So let's say 10 years pass, right? And everything is going good. Then maybe one day you get a new girl and she's jealous of your girl. Maybe she doesn't want your new girl to spend time with the baby or with your son when your son comes to your place. She can go to court and file for child support, put you on child support, and you'll be forced to pay child support from 10 years ago. Even if you have receipts of saying, hey, judge, I've been sending up money. Look, the judge will be like, no, that's not part of child support. It's not official. So what some guys are doing now, because women use that trick to get back at men, some guys put themselves on child support from the beginning. That way, she doesn't come back 5 years later when she's mad and then force you to pay money that you've been sending her money the whole time, but she's going to tell the judge you've never sent her anything. And the judge doesn't care about how much of money you've been sending her. They don't count it. All right. So anyway, guys, what do you guys think about that? Shout out to Anton Daniels. I won't finish the video because I want you guys to go down, click in the description so you guys can finish it. All right. So